The human body is seriously amazing. I mean, have you ever stopped to think about what a miracle your own body is? Well, today we are talking about how to tune in to what your body is telling you and how to use the simple power of your breath to decrease anxiety and stress. This interview is seriously one of my favorites thus far. My guest is Jen Esquer, a top 40 physical therapy influencer who's also been named one of the top 50 most influential healthcare professionals. She's legit. Jen holds a doctorate in physical therapy and is the founder of the mobility method. As a self-proclaimed mover, Jen has spent more than 2/3 of her life upside down, as she says, helping herself and those who are willing to learn and listen to their body to reverse aging, eliminate pain, and do the things that they never thought possible. Welcome back to the Powerhouse Women podcast. I have the pleasure today of having a fairly new friend join me. And like most good friendships, this one's really started, in my mind, with an epic dance party.
Yes,
definitely
did.
Anyone who's willing to get down on a dance floor with me, that is a friend for life. And we pretty much, from that moment forward, knew that this was going to be a thing.
Yeah, basically.
And I'm looking forward to the next dance party that we're able to have. So Jen, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on. This is such an honor.
Oh my goodness. So there's so much I really want to dig into about your story and really the work that you do. You and I had a chance to meet, and the location of this epic dance party was in Austin, Texas at our girl Christina's event, Decide It's Your Turn.
Mm-hmm.
She was actually one of my first guests on the podcast. I think she was episode 4 or something like that. So you can go back and listen to her episode, everyone. But you did a really impactful presentation at the event. And it's so in line with what we talk about in our community that it's inconsistent. If we are out in the world being this powerhouse, crushing goals, and then we come home and we either talk badly about the vessel that carries us through the world and allows us to fulfill, that's a hard word, fulfill our purpose, or if we just aren't taking care of ourselves, aren't tuning in to what our body is trying to tell us. So we're going to dig into all of that today, but I actually would love if you would start just with your story. And for those who may not know you, maybe they've not followed your social media journey, talk to me about what led you into this world of movement and where has that taken you up to the point today to what you're sharing and empowering others with?
Oh my goodness. I feel like I'm a different human since I first started social media, like seriously, because social media started almost like 5 years ago. And it was kind of like when Instagram had just started. And so, all my friends are on. I guess I'm going to get this thing called Instagram. And it was Jen_ES_care, because that's how you say my name phonetically.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
So that's how I had originally had my Instagram. And then all of a sudden I would post my outdoor workouts and I would tag like on the bars and stuff like that. And I would tag all the calisthenic pages that I knew of at the time. And one of them reached out to me and he was like, hey, we all get together in Venice, like come down to Venice and work out with us. And I'm like, oh my God, here's this guy with 300,000 followers reaching out to me. It was like a huge deal, especially 5 years ago. And I went down and worked out with them. They were all incredible humans, so nice, so open, like just this incredible community that was just trying to help each other elevate and grow. And eventually he would post anyone within the calisthenic community. So as soon as people started to come to my page, because he was starting to really push and promote me, I really just transferred into this fitness phase. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I don't show like my friends as much. I don't take selfies. I don't show who I am. It became very much of like, look at my calisthenic journey, look at what my body can do, and all of that. And I was so insecure back then as to really being able to show who I am. And even if it was like body things, it was like, I didn't want to take a photo just standing. I didn't ever want to take, I had met a lot of photographers. I did a lot of, shoots and everything, but it was very much if they like try to get in my face and I was like, oh no, wait until I'm upside down. Like, I'm not ready yet.
Wait until I'm upside down. I love that.
Let me get in my natural state of being. And I just had so much insecurity about being judged for the way I looked, because in my mind, I was not the prettiest. I was not like the supermodel. I was not like what I was supposed to be, whatever that meant, And so I was just so afraid to really put myself out there. And I remember I did this was such a long time ago when my Instagram was still building, but I did a challenge with 2 other girlfriends, both of them yogis. And we just kind of took people through this like 7-day challenge of start with the photo you probably would never have posted, talk about why you never would have posted it. And then take us through like your insecurities. And like, it would be like the first day was like pointing out your insecurities about that photo as to why you wouldn't have posted it. And then it was like, well, how does that impact you? How does that impact others when you hold it back? Like, and we went through this whole series, and that was one of the most impactful things I had done on my Instagram back then.
Wow.
And it was eye-opening, and it was like, I put out this photo that everyone thinks is beautiful, but I hated, because you could see like cellulite on a leg in one position, or, things that us women would typically tear down about ourselves. And my face was like in it. And I was like, nope.
Not upside down.
Yeah, exactly. And it was it's just incredible to see how my journey has transformed to now. You can look at my page, like if someone went to Doc Gen Fit right now, you could see tons of photos that I actually post that have my face in it, and I'm like front there in the camera. But I've grown so much through this 5-year process. And some of that included, wanting my story to be right about what I looked like. And I remember I was dating someone who was growing a social media as well. And one day he like posted us, and I looked in the comments, and one person had said, well, I get that she has a good body, but you could do so much better. And that was, the one comment I needed to confirm my story of what I was telling myself about my insecurities, which was just so silly. Like, we can find any information to confirm whatever story we want. And like, forget the other hundreds of comments that were nice. I look for the one that is mean in order to confirm what I think about myself. And that's really the journey that I was in the very beginning of like building the social media and everything.
And it's something that I personally relate to so much. And I know other women do too, especially that piece about looking for the evidence of our worst fears, our worst insecurities. And especially when it comes, this is just a weird world that we're in now with social media. Even though we know we're seeing a highlight reel of people's lives, I won't even say I still catch myself comparing my blooper reel to someone else's highlight reel.
Totally.
And I love that you have a powerful platform. You've built a really strong following and share such valuable information. And we're going to get into the mobility stuff and just listening to your body. But what I love most is that when I met you in person, you weren't just consistent with the woman that I had followed on social media. You were even better. You were even more authentic, more real. And that's what the world needs more of today. I mean, really.
Yeah. And it's sad sometimes when you meet that person that you were like, oh, it seems like we'd vibe so well. And then you meet them and either they're completely disconnected from who they really are, or it's just not the person that you thought, which is also like a reminder we can't hold people on pedestals. Like at the end of the day, people are people. And a lot of people are using social media for business. And it's so much easier to practice showing up in one sense when no one else is around you rather than practice showing up when tons of people are around you.
It's actually interesting that you say that. So from the event that we both spoke at in Austin, a few of the girls came up after, you know what it was? It was after we were both on the panel together with Rebecca, who's another fitness influencer. And someone asked about, oh, you all have a large social media following. And I looked because that actually has not been my story. But I also love that it isn't, because I want women to know that you can start right where you are. And a couple of women had come up afterward and just made a comment about that they had that all wrong. So I did an episode on how it's so not true. You don't need a huge social media following to get started right where you are. And the part you just said occurred to me, that it was way more comfortable just testing out content and putting things out there when no one was probably seeing it anyway, versus being in front of the whole world. So I love that you said that too. So one of the reasons I love following your account so much, I think especially as I get into my 30s, I realize the importance of mobility and just really, I think fitness for me has taken this turn, and I'm curious to know if this is similar to your journey. From there was a time where it was all about how my body looked, achieving a certain physique, to now, what does my body need in order to carry me through the next 50, 60, 70 years, versus just how do I look in my bikini? And you share some phenomenal information in terms of mobility and flexibility. So what inspired that? I mean, we haven't really dug into your background as a doctor of physical therapy, smart cookie, but where does this passion for mobility and having people feel well in that sense, where does that come from? What was that inspired by?
So once I graduated physical therapy school, and I was like, social media was fun and that was a side hobby while I was going through school, but now I would just want to be a good PT. So I don't really care about that. And I also had this push and this desire that I wanted people to know that I knew more about the body than just what I could do with my body. So I changed my name to Doc Jen Fit, and I kind of stepped away for a little bit until a friend convinced me to start like putting rehab stuff out there for what I knew. And a lot of people knew me as Jen the Yogi because I was upside down all the time. I'm like, where in my platform does it say I'm a yogi? But that was okay. I'll fit into that box. And so I started talking to yoga poses and like how you could get out of pain or injury based on what you do around the body. And for me, I thought it was like so basic at first when I was posting it. I was like, no one's going to care about this stuff. And of course, more people cared about that. And I got way more people watching those videos and coming to follow me than I ever did on my fitness videos. And that only motivated me to continue to post more and more and more, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually like, people want to learn. This is more than just entertain me and what can you do for me. But this was like, I want to come to you because I actually want to educate myself on my body, or there's a pain that I'm having and I want to learn about it. And so I just started to think about certain injuries and say, okay, what is a typical process I would probably put someone through? And I would always note, like, this isn't the one, there's no one size fits all. I can't just talk to your symptom and tell you what to do, but I can give you a general guideline to at least start moving and thinking about the body. And the more that I did it, I would notice what videos would do well. And it was actually, and this goes for anyone who wants to put content out there, like, listen to your audience. They will tell you based on what is performing better. And the videos that always, without a doubt, perform better were mobility videos. So I would usually start, say I was going to talk about plantar fasciitis for the week. I would start with like a mobility aspect and then go into like corrective exercises and then strength and skill, because that's kind of how you progress someone along a journey anyways. But it was always those mobility ones that did way better usually than any of the other ones. And so I was like, okay, let me post into this more. Let me like kind of dive in. And when the algorithms started changing, when I left my job and was treating people on my own, I could only see so many people. And I was like, who's even seeing my stuff online anymore? And if you see a 1-minute video, what is that even doing? So I decided I wanted to launch like into my own program to give someone actual feedback that could actually help them in their bodies. And that's when I just knew it was going to be mobility. I mean, one, people gravitated to it like way more than any of the other things, like I said. And I just knew. And I asked my audience, I polled them. I went on a live. I took a survey. I did everything just to make sure, like, is this what you really want? And it was so much in line with what I felt like in integrity. Like, well, integritous isn't a word. I want it to be a word. It's not a word.
We'll just make it up. I think we can do that. We have that power.
Okay, great. It felt integritous to be able to put out a program on mobility, not only because people wanted it, because it's your foundation. Like, of course it gets broken down, especially in modern culture and Western culture, is because we go from sitting crisscross applesauce, in preschool, to then suddenly getting shoved into desks all day long. And then we don't have playtime anymore outside. So then we're just sitting in desks and cars and chairs and, and we're just going from sit to stand, unless you're going to do a yoga class or some other workout class that's going to take you onto the floor. We're losing our mobility. We're getting stiff into our joints, like, of course. So what could I bring people back into, which is their foundation? And that's where it was like so important for me to like go back to the foundation and allow people to self-assess themselves so that they also realize where my pain is doesn't mean that's my problem.
Okay, I want to hear more about that, because that actually ties in with part of your talk that stuck with me the most. And it really came down to the mind-body connection, and the way that our body does communicate with us. But will you expand upon that? Just what you mean by where your pain is doesn't mean that's where the problem is, and what you often see people struggle with in that realm, and how we just get it wrong.
Yeah. So what I mean by that is that pain is your symptom. It's just your body's alert system to tell you that something is happening. And that's the one thing that I like to hammer back into people as well, because it's not bad. We are going to experience pain throughout our lives. And it's not something to fear. It's actually something to be grateful for. Because if you don't have that experience of pain, you don't know you don't know what's happening. You don't know if you need to address an injury that could be getting worse. You don't know if it could be a referral from an organ. You don't know if you're going to step on something sharp. Like, if you don't have this alarm system of pain, we actually get breakdown.
Yeah.
So we got to be super, super grateful for that alarm system, but also know that that is your alarm system toward your symptom, not your root cause, not the actual problem. So that's where I say, okay, if we just look at the body and if we look at a very physical level, which is where I always went, now I go a little bit deeper, but if we look at a very physical level, we can look at the body joint by joint. And this is a really easy mechanism I use for people just to start thinking about this. So if we go neck, it should be more stable, upper back, shoulders more mobile, low back more stable, hips more mobile, knees more stable, ankles more mobile, feet more stable, big toes more mobile. And now if we look at the places that are more stability driven, that's the neck, the low back, the knees, and the feet, plantar fasciitis, things like that. Like, those are the most common places we get injury.
So true.
And what we end up doing is, how do I strengthen on top of that? Or how do I stretch on that area? When really, what if we started looking above and below that area and saying, what is not moving well that could be putting extra tension into that painful area? And that's where we have to look at the body as a whole.
Which I feel like now I'm having like this very meta experience of like, this is just so relatable to every area of life. We look at, where's my acute sense of pain, whether that be in our body or in our business. And we just want to address that versus looking at the whole picture or expanding out to be able to address what caused it in the first place.
Exactly.
I just got like a huge breakthrough from you sharing that.
Good.
Podcast over. We've gotten what we need.
And
no, but it's so true. And talk about the piece that I think is even more overlooked, which is the mind-body connection. Or what I really meant there is the emotional connection. Like, when our body is giving us a sign that there is something off that we need to look at emotionally.
Yeah. So that's where I like to go outside of the physical now.
Yeah.
Like that's a very basic way to look at just physically, but we have to realize that everything in our environment dictates what's happening internally. So that could mean how much sleep you're getting. That could mean the air that you're breathing. That could mean the foods that you're intaking, because some are inflammatory, some you're allergic to, you might not even know. That could also mean the environments that you're putting yourself around in the people. So that could mean like your friendships. Are they building you up? Or are they tearing you down? Are they super negative, or are they like fun, light, and positive? That could mean your intimate relationship. What is happening there? That can mean your work relationship. What are the people that you're surrounding yourself in work? Is it a super toxic environment? That affects what's physically happening with the body as well, and creates this internal like turmoil. And the way that, I mean, on another broad level that I saw it, I know that for myself, I do have scoliosis. And there are moments where my right shoulder blade will really flare up, but I only feel it in moments of super stress. And I remember one time I got in a car accident. Everyone was fine, not my car, but everyone else. And right away, as soon as I got in the accident, my right shoulder blade flared up. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool, because I'm in stress. Like, of course it's flaring up. And I actually like nerded out for a moment.
I know. I'm like, I love how that was your reaction.
Because I knew like I was physically fine. I knew it had nothing to, like, it was a slow enough thing. Like I knew it wasn't like a huge reaction where my body was injured. It was really just that stress of like, oh crap, I got in an accident. And the moment I was able to address it is the moment the pain went away.
Interesting. Address the emotion of it, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Or acknowledge where that pain was coming from. Acknowledge that I know this is not physical. My body is fine. My body is not injured. I know that this is because the environment that I'm in. And imagine if we could do that. Like my back flares up more when I'm at work. It's not necessarily just how you're sitting, or you need an ergonomic, better setup, or you need all these external things. What if it was just, let me acknowledge that there's a stressor happening at work that it feels like it's out of my control. And that's where I like to say, okay, it's actually not out of your control. Now, how do we start to adapt our internal environment to match what's happening on the external?
So powerful. I mean, that alone, I feel, is the piece that, again, I'll just use myself as an example, was missing for so long. And I think for a lot of people, we're in a culture where we're taught to address the symptom, right? Yes. We want to, like, what's the pill that I can take, or what's the one stretch that I can do where this won't happen again? So how do you teach people to begin that process of making that mind-body connection stronger, or increasing their awareness? Like for someone who's brand new to this whole idea and their world has just been rocked to think that maybe their back pain is that they're annoyed with their coworker.
Yeah.
Where do we start? Because that could change everything.
So number one, I say you have to be open to the process, that it could be different than what you knew growing up. You know, it could be different than, like, you have to be willing to be open to the possibility that it could be driven from something else, something that you were never taught. And number two, I go into like, how can we start to welcome it in our body? And I really use the breath to be able to do that. So there's an autonomic nervous system that happens within our body. And this is like, say someone scares me and I, you know, just tighten up and I take a deep inhale, right? And everything usually gets really tight. I inhale up into my chest, my shoulders lift up to my ears, and I inhale and I hold. Now, if we think of a normal breath cycle, we have the inhale and we have the exhale. Inhale, like I just did, is your excitatory state. So that's going to be your fight, flight, freeze. Now, what typically happens is we get stuck in that phase without even realizing it and being cognizant to it, especially in moments of stress. So especially if we have these stimuli that are just like really stressful. So whether that's your boss even walking by because you're like, oh, I can't even like stand his presence, like that, it already gets you super tense. If it's like certain emails that pop up because you have so much to get back to, that already makes you super tense. Like, so if we start to think about what are the things that drive me into that sympathetic state, we now know that we have the ability to shift into the opposite, which is the parasympathetic. So in an autonomic, we think of this like going to get a massage. And what do? You're like, it's that exhale state. So if we really want to start to be able to change what we're feeling in those stress states, we focus on the exhale. So if we just look at that normal breath cycle, inhale, if we live in that inhale phase more, we're going to be driving that tension higher. That could be good if you're going to go do a run, if you're going to go box someone, if you're going to go, like, if you want to get your system excited, do inhale and like really like drive your system up. That will get you like super excited. And there's moments that we want that. But if you want to, which I think more entrepreneurs, more people in this world today, yeah, exactly, women in general, taking care of kids and a big kid, a husband, when we need these things, it's drive. How do I stay in that stressful state and be able to now automatically change it into that exhale? How do I get my body back into that rest, relax, digest? Because also when I'm in that tension state, I'm driving more cortisol throughout my body, which is also going to increase my sensitivity to pain. So I'm going to feel more pain.
Yeah.
It's also going to inflame my body a lot more, which could also drive more pain. And it's going to slow down my cognition. It's going to slow down. It's going to restrict being able to get oxygen up into my brain and my body in general. And so how can I then shift it over? That's where I like to say, okay, can you be in traffic, even just practicing this? Place your hands on like your low rib cage area and relax in the shoulders. And you can even sit back. Like, you don't need to be up and tense. Like, sit back, relax. And I like to say, so it's going to be like more of a 4-second inhale and an 8-second exhale. So we focus more on the exhale and almost doubling it. If it's not double in the beginning, that's okay. And you can retrain the diaphragm how to move properly by inhaling through your nose and exhaling through like pursed lips. So that's how I get someone to retrain their diaphragm. And we also have to realize that, again, if we're trying to get into that relaxed state, it doesn't mean taking a deep breath and bringing the shoulders up to the ears. That's typically what people do, right? Especially women.
I totally do that.
In the stomach, lift in the chest, lift in the shoulders, and then let it go, right? But if we think about what that's actually doing, we're staying in that inhalation state. So rather than having all the tension and pressure up here, if we actually want to fill up our lungs, the diaphragm drops. And the diaphragm rests right underneath the rib cage. So if we want that diaphragm to really drop all the way and get that maximal contraction, then we get to expand from the rib cage out to the side and forward and backward. So that's why I like to get people's hands on the side of the rib cage, because typically we don't feel that expansion.
Right.
We've been taught belly breathing, but what I've seen happen a lot with belly breathing is that people start forcing the bellies in and out, and that's no rib cage movement, right? And so how can we take a slow inhale and feel the hands kind of expand, fingers and hands apart, and then a really slow exhale for like 6 to 8 seconds and feel it come in. And if you need more feedback, you can kind of squeeze right before you're going to inhale. And then you can this is a natural feedback for your body to be able to understand and learn how to get into that relaxed state. That means we have control over most panic attacks. We have control over most anxiety. We have control over our inflammation. We have control in those stressful states. Like we're just learning more and more and more every day that we are actually responsible for everything that happens, like in the world and in this vessel. And it's the opposite of what we've been taught growing up. Right. We've been taught like how to mask symptoms. We've been taught how something happens, what do you need to do for me? But as a physical therapist, I can't do anything to fix you. I can facilitate the pathway into awareness into your body, but ultimately you are the only person who can get yourself better.
That's so powerful. What just popped into my mind too, like walking myself through this as you're talking about it, is oftentimes the negative emotions that I experience, even if we go way back to the beginning of our conversation, the fear, the self-doubt, a lot of those feel to me more like the shortness of breath, like if I look at the physical side of what that feels like in that moment, or I tend to be very sensitive. So if I get an email that comes through and registers to me as like rejection, like someone saying no to me, even if they're saying it in a very kind way, like there's a physical sensation. And to even just bring my body back into a place where I can respond in a more powerful way, or where I can get my creativity flowing again. I don't think that I have ever heard a better explanation of just the power of our breath and the way that you described how to start to reframe the body's response. This is like blowing my mind. And you did touch on this when I heard you speak, but I'm getting it in a whole new way right now.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah.
And we could go so far into that too. It's like, especially if you want to wake up conquering your day, like making sure that you're breathing or only in and out through your nose when you're sleeping and not through your mouth. And so sometimes like
interesting,
you could take Scotch tape, not like duct tape or anything, take a small piece of Scotch tape around vertically rather than horizontally. Again, we're not trying to kill anyone. Scotch tape because it can come off very easily. Sure. And it's just a reminder for your mouth to kind of stay closed and see if you can breathe in and out through your nose all the whole time that you sleep. Because one, that's going to get you back into that parasympathetic system. Two, it's going to actually induce nitric oxide. And what nitric oxide does is it vasodilates our vessels so that we can get more blood flow, which blood flow will then get more oxygen flowing throughout our body. And at the same time, we're not expelling too much carbon dioxide. And that's usually what we're doing all throughout the day is like we're breathing from our mouth, or if you're sleeping and you're always breathing through your mouth, you're not keeping enough carbon dioxide in your body. And it's actually that carbon dioxide that attaches to what's called hemoglobin and it releases oxygen. So if we can tolerate keeping more carbon dioxide within our body, we actually increase the volume of oxygen we get flowing throughout our entire body. So I mean, it gets a little nerdy, but that's like the most basic way I can explain it to make it like, oh, that's like, I can wake up without brain fog, and don't need that coffee.
I mean, it's amazing to me. I'm a big believer in the power of our own bodies, but I feel like when I get to talk to people like you who actually understand the way that the body works and can explain it in such a succinct way, it's incredible. And we say within our community, we exist to help women get out of their own way and into action around their big ideas. And so often, kind of going back to the analogy of looking at the root cause, we just want the quick fix for more confidence, or we want the quick fix for what's the secret sauce to building a successful business. But I think it really just all ties together that we have so many of the answers that we need within ourselves and within this beautiful vessel that we have.
Yes, I know. And it's like, it was a big journey for me actually, at the end of last year and going into this year, of getting back into how did I lose my ability to listen and trust my own intuition.
Do you want to share a little bit more about that? I mean, I got to hear you share a piece of this story, but I think it would add so much, because it's one thing to hear and to logically get it, but to understand. I think there's probably women listening to this right now who don't realize their body is giving them some very clear signs.
Totally. So, excuse me. So I went through a pretty severe breakup in terms of like, it was not unexpected to me. I walked away from a situation where I found out about infidelity and unfaithfulness. And it was a shock to my system at first. It was actually really funny. I was like, when I found out, and I was like, how silly. I teach people how to breathe. Like, get it together, Jen, come on. But it was like, it was cool to also have that tool to be able to breathe, because I could imagine staying in that panic mode and that anxiety
absolutely
for a long time had I not had the tools to be able to calm back down. And it happened relatively quickly for me. So I'm like, I just a quick little side note takeaway, like you really can adjust the way that you're in that panic, in that anxiety, and taking control through the breath. But it was in that moment where I knew, I was like, oh, I didn't know obviously that was happening, but at the same time I knew that my intuition had been trying to talk to me throughout the relationship and tell me there's just like not alignment there. And for whatever reason, I continued to say, no, but what if? No, but what if? And I kind of lived in this state of like, okay, I'm just not accepting enough. I'm not understanding enough. I'm not giving enough right now. Oh, I'm not patient enough, or whatever this, I just like, it was like I was continuing to say, I'm not enough. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. And I was staying in this relationship where I continued to repeat that pattern over and over and over again for myself, not even realizing it. It was so subconscious. And what I was doing with doing that as well is I was pressing down my intuition that had been, no, but something's happening. No, but this isn't right. No, but you want more. And instead I was like, no, but maybe I'm just not enough right now. Like I will be maybe in the future. I'm just not enough right now. And I continued to stay in that cycle. And for me, I thought back and I said, okay, well, where did I lose my ability to sense my own intuition and listen and trust myself? Because what happened when I realized everything, it was this moment of like clarity of like, oh my God, my intuition was right. My gut was right.
Yeah.
And it was so freeing for that moment, but it was also like, okay, where did I lose that? And why didn't I listen? So it was this whole, like, besides just getting over a breakup and getting over a man, it was this whole process of forgiving myself for not trusting myself and forgiving myself for not listening to that. Because last year, I also drove myself so crazy in trying to figure it all out that I got shingles. And though it didn't come with pain, it's definitely a scar on my body. And now I look at it and it's almost like a tattoo.
Like a reminder.
It's a reminder. Like, don't ever not listen to yourself. Like, you can trust you. And which is, I think, the most beautiful gift I ever gave myself by going through this process. And I realized for me, if I can go back, I grew up such a beautiful family, but at the same time, I was also like told what I was kind of doing. And I like to be the perfect child who's kind of trying to follow everything. So I go to church and I get good grades and I do gymnastics and I do this. And I think through that, it was hard and kind of muddy to form my own beliefs and really stick to it and form my own intuition in that. Instead, I was trying to please other people.
Yeah.
And I was trying to be perfect for someone else.
Oh, I can relate to that on such a personal level, everything you're just saying. And as you are talking about just the intuition piece, I'm literally getting like goosebumps all over, because there's so many women that I talk to, men and women, but our community just happens to be women who it's like their intuition is telling them that something is off, whether that be a relationship. Sometimes it's a job that that's no longer a fit for them, or a friendship. So many different real life examples. And I know that I'm just now starting to tap into that awareness. And I want to be able to give that gift. And I think this podcast conversation will be a first step in just within our community, really being able to give women that gift of listening to their own intuition, because I think it is so extremely powerful. And
powerful.
I think what I'm most like just really impacted by as you're sharing this right now is your ability to, because I was in a similar situation really long time ago with the infidelity piece. And instead of what I heard you saying is you were obsessing over, in a healthy way, where did I lose that touch, versus what I obsessed over is, how did this happen? What's wrong with me? And even just the power in that choice to look at it from the standpoint of, what can I control in this situation? not going back to more evidence for how not enough I was. And again, this could be a relationship ending, a job ending, a path that you thought you were going to take, all of a sudden taking a sharp left turn. There's so many opportunities in that moment to choose to allow that story to reinforce these unhealthy beliefs, or to say, okay, where were the signs that I missed?
Mm-hmm. And that's the same with like looking at pain as well. It's like, because we can kind of go and like almost mesh the two now.
Yeah.
If I'm going to just look at the pain and say, oh no, here's a pain point. How do I fix just this? How do I address this, just this? We stay very surface, and it'll probably come back again and again and again. Same with a relationship. If you get out of a relationship kind of blindsided, and it's painful, right? But if now you go into, how can I cover up the pain? By drinking, by sleeping with someone, by proving to this guy, by getting to revenge, or and if I stay in this symptom driven state and just trying to cover up the symptoms really quick, that's where you're going to stay. And you're probably going to draw in that same relationship again and again, and the pattern continues.
Yeah.
But instead, if you allow it to say, okay, yes, it sucks, and feel all the feelings. Like, I am a huge proponent of, like, you have to feel it in order to free it. It's just part of the journey. So you're going to feel angry. You're going to feel hurt. You're going to feel sad. Allow yourself that opportunity and that space during the healing journey. And again, this is coming out of a job that you really wanted, a partnership, a friendship, whatever it may be. But also then say, okay, how was I showing up that I either attracted this in, or that I stopped listening to myself? And why did I? And if we focus all the attention back on what did I do, and not that you caused this to happen, like, and that's where I also was like, this has nothing to do with me, because that's not my integrity. That's not my choice. And we are all free to do whatever choice we want. Even if it was like, I pulled away from the relationship a lot, whatever. Even if I did something to drive someone, that's what we usually think. Well, she must have done something to drive it. No. There's always freedom in being able to break up, being able to communicate things that are not being seen, rather than being out of integrity within the relationship. So again, someone else's choices don't have to do with you. They have to do with them. And that's why you don't get to take it on as your own self-worth. What you get to take on is, how did I draw this in, this relationship, this partnership, this friendship? Where was I at in my life that I might have mirrored that? And where did I not create boundaries, that I stood up for myself maybe? How did I allow myself to be walked on a little bit? And you really get to see, okay, how can I learn, and how can I step into my power now? How can I say, this is not going to happen? Rather than staying in that, what could I do for him? How do I get back at him? And all of that. And that's why I shared my story. And for some people, it's still like, I've heard, I'm getting revenge, and I'm trying to, and it's not at all. I'm trying to show how people don't have to take this on as self-worth, but we do have to learn the lessons. And that's, and you don't have to feel shamed about sharing a story of what happened to you, as long as it's not going about the other person. If it's about you and what you did, you really get to like center yourself. And in terms of like, how do I learn how to listen to my intuition? How do I bring that to the surface? I love journaling. I think it's such a beautiful tool. And this could be in any aspect. So just start journaling like about the thing, and then say, okay, if my friends and family's opinion didn't matter, how would I feel about it? If my partner's opinion didn't matter about this, how would I feel about this? If money didn't have contribute to this, how would I feel about this? If like whatever you think might be like a layer on top as to why you might be doing it, take it off. Journal about it. Just see what comes up for you. And the more that we're able to tap into that, and that could even be just in your meditative like practices, that could be in journaling, the more that we come back to, okay, let me take this layer off and see what is real for me. Okay, let me take this layer off. What is real for me? And the more that we come into what is real for me, what is real for me, the more that you're able to start tapping into this intuitive power, which I think is such a power to be able to use, so that you know what you're truly aligned with. And this doesn't mean that something is wrong or something else is bad. This isn't about right, wrong, good, bad. This is about what aligns to you for who you are and where you're at, and what does not align to you.
Oh my goodness. I feel like I could talk to you all day. I really could. There is so much gold here that I'm really hoping people take away, because if we can free women up to fully experience what's happening in life and bring ourselves back to that power that we have within us, and asking those great questions, being able to reflect without judgment for ourselves, I truly think that's the core of the work that we want to do, to free women up, to be using their stories, their gifts to impact the world in a positive way. And that is exactly what you are doing, and why I just knew from the moment, from that dance party on, I knew that not only did I have to have you in my life, but I needed to have you as part of this bigger conversation on the podcast. So where can people connect with you if they want to learn more, experience some of your mobility training? Tell us all the things and where people can Insta-stalk you.
So Doctorate Fit across the board. Instagram is obviously where you're going to see me a bit more, but YouTube, and I'm going to come out with more things on YouTube so you can learn about the body in a deeper way. Facebook, I'm on there. My website, Doctorate Fit. So Doctorate Fit across the board for all the things.
That makes it easy. I love that.
Yeah.
So we love to end the show just really with a reminder for women that, number one, we're not meant to do this alone, whether it's life or business. And just more than anything, remind our fellow sisters in business, in life, that, we're all just trying to figure this out as we go.
Totally.
So I want to leave it to you. What do you want women to know who are chasing after their next big idea, their big dream, their deeper purpose? What do you want them to know from your experience?
I want them to know that they have everything they need already within them. You are enough. It is possible. And you are more worthy than you ever think possible to be able to achieve what you are going to call into your life.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for being here today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.